Hello and welcome. You're watching us live on live interactive session on teaching learning interventions for inclusive classrooms. You're watching us live on PMeVIDYA channel number 8 and on our YouTube channel, which is NCRT Official. With that, you're watching us live on NCERT PMeVIDYA class 8. So today we are bringing a subject English for you of class 8 and from your textbook Honeydew, and the chapter is A Visit to Cambridge. To elaborate this chapter to you, we are having in the studio Miss Dipti Chawla, who is mentor teacher at Directorate of Education in Delhi. Ma'am, a very warm welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we start this session, here's a piece of information for all of you, and that is that if you have any query between the session, if you have any questions for us and you want to ask us, so the phone numbers are flashing on your screen, which is 8800440559. You can directly mail us at dth.class8@cietnic.in. With that, you can directly ask your questions in the chat box if you're watching us on YouTube. So, ma'am, without any further delay, let's start this session. And the first question, ma'am, that I have for you is, like, the chapter name is A Visit to Cambridge.
Yes.
So, are we going to like Cambridge? Are we going to discuss what exactly it look like and what exactly the chapter means? Like the Cambridge, I just want to know the meaning of the word here. Like, what is exactly the chapter is all about?
Okay. So, we are not going to discuss Cambridge today. Cambridge is a small town in UK,
Okay.
very close to London. It's in UK, but we are not going to talk about UK or Cambridge or London today.
Okay.
This is a visit to Cambridge, and this visit was done by Mr. Firdaus Kanga. Okay. So, that's what we are going to discuss. It's part of his visit to Cambridge.
Okay.
And in this particular chapter that we are going to discuss, he talks about what happened during his visit to Cambridge and why it was special.
Okay.
So, let's look at the PPT.
Okay.
This is the chapter.
But ma'am, before we start the chapter, as you have mentioned, Firdaus Kanga, can we know little bit about him? Who is he and
Why not?
Yeah.
Let's again go back to our screens and look at the PPT. So, this is Mr. Firdaus Kanga.
Okay.
Okay. He is a Indian journalist, writer, actor, filmmaker. He has multiple roles. He was born in Mumbai. He is very famous for his autobiography, Trying to Grow. And why it is famous and why it is special is because he was born with a condition called osteogenesis imperfecta, which is a brittle bones disease. Now, what is interesting is that in this particular disease, your bones become very brittle. They do not grow like normal bones grow, and anyone who is suffering from this disease has very weak bones. The bones can easily break. They do not grow like normal bones, like you are, like I am. So, what we consider normal, okay, so they are not as strong as our bones, so they are weaker, and the growth is also limited. So, he suffers from brittle bones disease, and yet he was able to overcome all the physical challenges that he faced. Students, like many of you who are watching us today, you also have faced a lot of challenges. You might be facing even now, or you may eventually face. So, whoever is facing a challenge, this visit will in a way be of support to all of you as well, because Mr. Firdaus Kanga, who himself suffered from a lot of physical challenges, pursued a career in writing, acting, filmmaking and traveling. So, this is Firdaus Kanga, and today's unit is more about his visit to Cambridge, where he visited Mr. Stephen Hawking.
Okay.
Now, you must be interested in knowing who Stephen Hawking is. Do you know who Stephen Hawking is?
A bit about him, but our viewers definitely they would love to know about who is Stephen Hawking.
All right, great. So, he visited Mr. Stephen Hawking. Mr. Stephen Hawking, many of our students also might be familiar with him. He was born in Oxford, UK in 1942. He has been one of the most famous physicist, scientist and author, and he's known for his work on black holes and cosmology. He is the person who proved that black holes do not simply absorb everything, but they also emit radiations. They are known as, popularly known as, Hawking radiations. So, in his case also, in the year 1962 sometime, he was diagnosed with a very rare disease which is called ALS. It's a motor neuron disease which left him paralyzed eventually at the age of 21, 22. ALS is amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and what happens in this disease is your motor neurons in your brain that are supposed to help you move, make all kinds of movements, they eventually stop working and they leave your body paralyzed.
Okay.
You cannot talk, you cannot move, your body doesn't grow, it begins to shrink. And when we say paralysis, it's almost complete paralysis of the body, but the mind works. It doesn't affect the mind or the powers of the mind, but it does affect your physical mobility to a very, very severe extent. However, despite his physical limitations, he is one of the greatest scientists after Einstein that our world knows, and he is one of the most celebrated scientists as well. Now let's actually look at what happens in Firdaus Kanga's visit to Cambridge. So Firdaus Kanga travels to Cambridge to meet Stephen Hawking. The primary reason for this was that both these great men are differently abled and yet have achieved great success. And this particular meeting, the one that Kanga describes in this chapter, A Visit to Cambridge, it's not only intellectual but emotional. They both talk about life, their challenges, their successes, and there is a lot that Firdaus Kanga wants to learn. During the chapter, he says that when I meet people who might be facing similar challenges like I am, and every day they are trying to work something out, they're trying to succeed, it's inspiration for me to move forward. It's an inspiration for me to do better. That's why Firdaus went and met Mr. Stephen Hawking. Now let's quickly look at the summary of this chapter. So this visit to Cambridge it's a narrative.
Yes. So the word that you have used here, narrative, I really want to know the meaning of narrative. What is narrative?
Okay. So basically when we say it's a narrative, it's a personal account of Firdaus Kanga. Anyone who is writing or penning down a personal account of a visit, of an event, of an experience, that becomes a narrative.
Okay.
It's in first person voice usually. So if I am writing, I would be saying I visited Delhi. I went and saw the India Gate, monuments, whatever I experienced throughout, then that becomes a narrative. It's my narrative.
Okay.
Right? It might be in the form of a story, but it's a narrative because it's my personal account. When we talk of stories, it's about somebody written by somebody else.
Okay.
You know, fictional characters, but a narrative is about a person involved in experiencing that story. So whoever is writing, if I am writing or if you are writing, we are the authors of this story as we are experiencing it. That's a narrative.
Okay, that's
All
great.
right. So let's quickly read the narrative. The author shares his experience of meeting Stephen Hawking, which began with a call answered by Hawking's assistant. Now, just to give you a background of this, Firdaus Kanga actually was on a tour to UK. Okay. Then he went to Cambridge. Anyone who goes to UK, visits London, visits different places. He went to Cambridge, and as he was visiting Cambridge, there was a guide with him. The guide pointed out that that's Stephen Hawking's house. Now, Stephen Hawking is a celebrated scientist. He is an inspiration to so many of us. Every single person on this earth has been inspired by him. So suddenly there was this desire in Kanga, also because he's a journalist, so he wants to know the story from the person. So he thought that he may try his luck, and he immediately left his tour in the middle and gave a call, found out the number and gave a call to Stephen Hawking's house. When his assistant picked up the phone, he requested that I have travelled from India in a wheelchair and maybe I'll be able to rocket myself somewhere. Can I meet Mr. Hawking for 10 minutes? He requested that he be allowed to meet Mr. Hawking for 10 minutes, and it was so surprising that the assistant scheduled a half an hour meeting between 3:30 and 4 p.m. So Firdaus Kanga was overjoyed and he arrived. After he arrived, he was taken aback by Hawking's appearance because all the machines were supporting his frail body. The condition that Mr. Stephen Hawking suffers from does not allow you to move, and his body is slumped because it's paralyzed. So most of the pictures that are popular, even then his neck is slouching like this, and there is a screen attached to his chair. He uses a wheelchair and he taps. He uses his fingers to tap, and the screen, he can read out something on the screen. And when he saw, he was taken aback, because it's one thing to know, but it's another thing to actually see that. But he quickly composed himself, normalized his emotions, and then he began the interview.
Okay.
When asked about his courage in facing his condition, Mr. Hawking replied that he had no choice but to be brave and accept his reality, which was eye-opening to Mr. Kanga. He himself has been doing the same. He noted how, so Mr. Stephen Hawking also noted how people tended to patronize him, which he found amusing. So he used to find it very amusing when people will like coddle him, patronize him, and he expressed that. It's funny because I am capable of doing so many things. And Stephen Hawking is one person who actually deferred help for as long as he could. He tried to do a lot of things on his own. He denied help to a major point possible, almost till the time his condition became severe. So the author then asked him, did it annoy him when people like the author interrupted his day? So Firdaus actually pointed towards himself, that were you annoyed when I requested a visit and when people like me request for a visit? And Hawking, smiling, admitted that it did, because it disrupts his day in any way. Throughout the conversation, the author, which is Firdaus Kanga, was struck by Hawking's inner beauty, seeing him as the most inspiring person he had ever met. Before parting, Hawking offered advice to focus on one's strength and not on what one cannot do. The meeting left the author deeply moved, realizing that true strength comes from the mind, not the body. So this became a very, very important part in Kanga's journey, and he actually wrote it as part of a book. Let's quickly look at the chapter summary. These are important points. When you read, do take care of noticing these 5 points. So Kanga's journey to Cambridge, Firdaus travels to meet Stephen Hawking, eager to learn from him. Then the actual meeting, and despite Hawking's physical limitations, they can communicate effectively. And yes, he also outlines that, not Hawking but Firdaus Kanga outlines that, when he is responding, the words that appear on the screen actually do not capture his tone, the inflection. When I talk, when you talk, we can express a lot of our emotions by simply changing our tone, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, he also notices that his eyes are very expressive, and Mr. Hawking expresses a lot through his eyes. So where on one aspect one might be lacking, on another aspect or another quality we might improve ourselves. So students just like Mr. Hawking, who was completely paralyzed and used an electronic device to communicate what he wanted to say, though limited, he was able to effectively communicate because he was also using his eyes, constantly using his mind, and the meeting was successful. Then both of them discussed physical challenges. Both of them also discussed how their minds helped them to overcome those physical challenges. Kanga gave an interesting insight also, that eventually during his conversation with Mr. Stephen Hawking, he realizes the power of resilience and intellectual strength. Now, this is important also because when Stephen Hawking was identified with ALS, doctors had actually predicted 3 years for his survival, that he would not be able to survive this condition beyond 3 years. But it was sheer willpower, determination, knowing that you can do a lot more even if there are challenges, there are physical limitations. The mind has boundless potential.
Definitely.
Right. So he actually lived longer, and he passed away in 2018, which is very interesting. Somebody who was identified
Yes.
somebody who was identified with ALS in the year 1962, and eventually went on to live till the year 2018. Right?
Yes.
So that's interesting. That's extremely interesting, because it sort of helps you focus on willpower and helps you focus on resilience. Now, what is resilience? What do you think resilience is?
Flexibility, and moreover, resilience is that you have to create somewhere in your mind that how flexible you are, how much you want to like be flexible, whether in your thoughts, whether that you want to like capable of having those hard hits on yourself. So I think this is what I feel, that this is what resilience means.
You're partly correct.
Yes.
Neve. Resilience is basically the power of bouncing back from something. You know, you've experienced a setback, you've experienced something that has been a bit traumatic or stressful. It can be a very small thing, for example, not being able to eat breakfast in the morning, but it could be as major as experiencing ALS, or like many of our students who are watching this might be suffering from some or the other physical challenge, or might be experiencing any other challenge, not just physical but emotional challenge or some other form of a problem, right? But to be able to bounce back from it is resilience. You know, I accept it and I move forward, and I learn from it and I move forward. And then Firdaus leaves this visit inspired, understanding that the mind can transcend the body.
Okay.
Okay. Throughout this chapter, we look at life through Firdaus Kanga's eyes, who is trying to explain this whole perspective on life through Stephen Hawking's story, or using Stephen Hawking as an example. So what we now, again, the aspect of narrative comes
Narrative,
in,
yes.
because it is Firdaus Kanga's perspective, but what perspective he built upon is Stephen Hawking's life. So Firdaus shares how he navigates the world using humor and intelligence, because conversation is not one way. Stephen Hawking is also talking to Firdaus. He expresses admiration for Stephen Hawking, who has achieved so much despite his challenges and different abilities. And of course, the theme of resilience as the most powerful tool. Then lessons from this meeting. Let's revise, children, the lessons from the meeting between Mr. Kanga and Mr. Hawking. The first important lesson is mind over body. Hawking and Kanga both show that intellectual strength overcomes physical limitations. Second lesson is determination wins. Both these men have achieved greatness by refusing to give up. Mr. Hawking is no more with us. He passed away in 2018, but Mr. Kanga survives, and he is still writing, he is still making films, and both of them proved to be mutual inspiration for each other. Of course, Stephen Hawking more to Mr. Kanga, but every time Mr. Hawking must be meeting someone, he must also be getting inspired, that he is able to bring so much of a positive difference to everybody's life.
Definitely.
Then major themes in this chapter are, first is resilience. We've already discussed resilience.
Yes.
Second is independence. Both these men have sought independence, intellectual independence, despite being physically dependent on others. And somewhere in the chapter, both of them also mention that the world is in general kind, and we should acknowledge kindness in the world, and we should accept help when we need it. We should not delay accepting help. We should seek help in case we need it. At the same time, being independent. And yes, inspiration. Firdaus was inspired by Hawking to continue his journey, and he hopes that someone gets inspired by him. And I think we all are a source of inspiration for each other, because we are all trying something new, struggling forward, achieving something. So we should appreciate all of that in each other as well. And another important thing is humor. Both these men use humor as a coping mechanism for their struggles. If now let's quickly take a look at how they have used humor in this chapter. So Kanga actually uses humor for self-description. Example, when he discusses how he's come, he says, I had come in a wheelchair from India, but I don't know if I was strong enough to push myself all the way to another galaxy. So he uses these little phrases. His writing style is full of humor. Humor that is aimed at easing out such a heavy topic of discussion, inspiration, overcoming struggles. It can be overwhelming as well. Many of us, may also feel that it's a lot of speech, that be resilient, overcome your challenges, this, that. But at the same time, to be able to give it a humorous break, it sort of becomes more relatable, right? When Hawking talks about his condition, he is also being humorous. He says, when Stephen Hawking, when he is asked how he manages to work, because he's completely paralyzed, he simply says, I have no choice. And both of them laugh immediately. He smiles after saying that. When he types, I have no choice, there is the author, Kanga, doesn't realize that it's a humorous statement. But the minute he writes this, he smiles. So the smile indicates that he's being a little humorous about it, and he's in a way cracking a small joke on himself, and Kanga notices it, because it's very important to notice these little things,
True.
And Kanga jokes about his shoes. So what happens is, once his half-an-hour appointment is up, he is leaving, but Mr. Stephen Hawking invites him and says, come, I'll take you to my garden. And then it's a huge garden, and they spend another hour in that garden talking about things. And Stephen Hawking also asks him, does he face difficulty? And he says, my pointed shoes help for me to move my chair. So in a way, they have accepted themselves, and they're trying, both of them are trying to move forward. So I also wanted to take a minute, Neve. We all face challenges. Children, you face your challenges. Everyone faces challenges. What are your inspirations for overcoming challenges?
I think my inspiration are many, and it changes according to the situation.
Of course.
But I just feel that as you have said, resilience, this is a main part of this chapter, and that some way you should build in yourself, because that's how you can overcome from these challenges, and that is the very important thing.
Right.
That's how you can make yourself strong, and I'm sure you must have faced those challenges in your life. I have faced those challenges. Even our viewers have faced those challenges in their day-to-day life.
True.
So not a single person is all alone in facing these challenges, but how we overcome from them, that shows our strength.
Also, how do you use your strengths, mental strengths, creative strengths, to bounce back, to feel refreshed?
Yeah, so basically whenever we are in a situation where we feel that this is an obstacle that we are facing right now, most important that how our mind actually work in that situation.
Right.
Even Stephen Hawking, whose body is actually we can say provide challenges to him, but his mind, that worked a lot for him.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
that made him a man beyond words.
Right.
So not just about Stephen Hawking, even the same thing goes for Firdaus Kanga, who wanted and who wants that people should inspire from me as well.
True.
So I think our mind plays a very vital role over here.
Absolutely. And sometimes, children, there are different ways to use your strengths. Sometimes it's the mental strength, as Mr. Kanga and Mr. Hawking have used, and sometimes, your creative strengths also help. Some of you might be extremely good at expressing yourselves through art, through craft,
Yes.
Through literature, through dance, through gardening. anything that helps you express your strengths creatively is going to be helpful, and they also in a way build up our strength to face our challenges. And I hope that after reading this chapter all of you get inspired to do the same, as it will help you not just deal with your current situation but to become better, always become better.
Indeed.
Okay, so now let's look at some new words. The new words for you today are three. One is buoyant. They are also written in Braille language. Inflection, then incandescence. Okay, and buoyant and incandescence have been used as adjectives in the chapter. Inflection has been used literally. Buoyant and incandescence have been used to explain Stephen Hawking's personality. Let's quickly take a look at our homework.
Okay.
There are short sentence based answers that we've learned in the chapter. The first is, who is Firdaus Kanga and why did he visit Cambridge? The other is, what physical challenge did Stephen Hawking face? Third question is, how did Firdaus feel after meeting Stephen Hawking? Fourth, what lesson can we learn from both Firdaus Kanga and Stephen Hawking? And last question is, how do Firdaus and Stephen Hawking use their minds to overcome their disabilities or their challenges? Neve, would you like to answer these questions for our viewers? I think it will be better if we provide them with a little prompt. How do Firdaus and Stephen Hawking use their mind to overcome their challenges?
Definitely both are the inspiration for many of us, and I feel that Firdaus and Stephen Hawking, they use their minds because mentally they are very strong.
Yes.
Their bodies produce those challenges to him or to them, both of them, but their minds are very strong for them. But ma'am, these are the 5 questions that we have given to our viewers, to our children of class 8. But now it's time to wrap up this session because that's an important session.
Okay, before we wrap up,
Yes.
Neve, let's quickly take a look at modified homework as
Yeah.
well. So, this will help our students to attempt it. Students who could not attempt the previous this homework can easily do the modified homework. You just have to complete the sentences below by filling in the missing words. First, Firdaus Kanga is a dash and dash who was born with brittle bone disease. Second, Stephen Hawking was a famous dash who worked on dash and black holes. Third, Firdaus visited dash to meet Stephen Hawking. Fourth, both Firdaus and Stephen overcome their dash through the power of their dash. Stephen Hawking used a dash to communicate because he had a condition called dash. So, mostly information that you are already familiar with.
Okay, so this is the homework format that you're seeing on your screen, and that is that you have to write your name after completing this homework. You have given 2 homeworks. One is like a normal one and the another one is modified one. After your name, you have to write down your school name and address, date of the session, and then you have to write name of the expert, which is Deepti Chawla, and it has already written out there. And then the photo is optional. If you want to paste your photo, you can paste it. You are free to do that as well, and you have to send this homework on our mail ID, which is dth.class8@ciet.nic.in. At the same time, while I'm saying this to you and telling you this, the ID is flashing on your screen as well. So ma'am, thank you so much for coming over here and giving us so much insights of this beautiful chapter. A visit to Cambridge, ma'am, really a heartfelt thank you to you.
Thank you so much for having me. And children, remember, your mind can overcome any challenge you face. All the best. Good luck.
Definitely, your mind can overcome any challenges. Anushka, our interpreter, a very thank you to her as well, the way she explained everything to our children. But now it's time to take our leave. I know that it's a tough situation for all of us, but that's how the thing goes on. But now, before we go, here's a schedule for today, that what we have for you. after this session. So as you can see on your screen, that you can see the whole schedule, that 2 sessions already done, yoga, and the 10 to 10:30 session. Now the 12:30 session, 12 to 12:30 session is also done. But what we have come to you at 2:30 p.m. So at 2:30 p.m. you'll have a mathematics subject where we are going to cover the topic triangle. Then at 3 to 3:30 we are going to study about Sanskrit, and in Sanskrit we're going to study about Sanskrit Vakya Rachna. After that, at 3:30 to 4 p.m. we'll have a subject of social science where we are going to cover the topic land, soil, water, natural vegetation and wildlife. This is part 2. And after that we'll have 4 to 5 p.m. Topic developing media literacy skills. This is our online training session. And after, we'll end our day at 5 to 5:30 p.m. There we are going to have a Sahyog, and the topic is parental case and coping strategies to overcome exam fear in students. So this is the schedule for today, but you don't need to go anywhere, because after this we'll join you again at 2 p.m. So you need to take care of yourself. I'm hoping that your day is definitely going really very well with us. So you have to stay tuned with NCERT Official. A very warm, a very thank you for all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good day.